Right, and we're back. Hope everybody's there. So I said that we're going to be talking about the presentations. So I'll be sharing this with you. So the spoken presentation, which is part of your of the compulsory examination for GCSE, and I'm putting down the 2 weeks, the basically from the 13th. It says to the 13th to the 20th, but that's actually so during that week. I'd like to do as many of the presentations as possible. There's a lot of you, so we won't be able to do it all in the class time, and I'll have to arrange other times when people can come and do their presentations. Let me just give you some ideas about what's involved in that. So it's called the Spoken English Endorsement, and we're asking you to speak for about 4 to 10 minutes. 10 minutes is way too long. You don't want to be speaking for 10 minutes. Keep it as close to the 4 minutes as possible. 4 or 5 minutes is a long time, believe me. So you talk for 4 minutes and then you'll be answering questions, maybe for another minute or two. So the whole thing could be about 6 minutes. Okay. You are speaking on any subject you like. Absolutely no. We're not going to give you subjects to talk about. You just choose a subject that is something close to you that you know a lot about. I don't want to say go off and do lots of research. Just choose a subject you already know about, and prepare to speak for 4 or so minutes on that subject. So you can do that in front of the group in our session, or in a one-to-one with me. And obviously it's only going to take 5 or 6 minutes. So who's there? So it's only going to take 5 or 6 minutes. I reshare it. Now, I did tell you this a couple of weeks back, but the results of the spoken language endorsement don't count towards your grade, the 1 to 9 grade, but you get on the certificate either a pass, a merit, or distinction for the spoken language endorsement. So you can say to people, I've got a certificate that actually gives me a merit or a distinction in GCSE spoken English. It is a qualification at that level. Okay. Go back. So we're talking about the spoken English endorsement, which I'm suggesting that we do in the week, which is a fortnight away from now. What are we looking for? Well, the key to giving a good presentation is choosing a good subject. Choose a subject you know well and which interests you. I want you at the moment to think carefully about possible subjects. So all I want you to do on this in the next week is to find a subject that you will do your talk on. So it could be a hobby or an interest, or a holiday you particularly enjoyed or hated. It can be a job, it can be your pet, it can be a skill, it can be something you enjoy doing. The choice is much wider than you think. One of the best ones I've ever had was a young woman who had been the captain of the England football team, women's team, and she gave a talk about sexism and misogyny in British sport and the history of discrimination in British sport. It was really, really well done. If you've already done a presentation in something like functional skills, or maybe a work presentation or something like that, and you want to just, use that as the basis of what you're going to do, please feel free. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel. But definitely don't go for a subject that is going to take you hours to research. You might think about how you structure your talk, thinking about dividing it up logically to fill the time allowed. So if you've got 4 or 5 minutes, think about how much time you're going to spend. A short talk will probably divide into 5 or 6 sections. For example, a talk on competitive swimming might begin with an explanation of how you first got interested, then deal with the equipment needed and the cost. Then you could outline your training program, your achievements to date, and your hopes for the future. And each of those sections could be introduced by, say, a rhetorical question. So why did I get interested in competitive swimming, and so on? Or think more simply of a structure like having an introduction, and then each of the parts after that would be a key section, finishing with a conclusion, much as you would plan a piece of writing. I would say that you shouldn't write out the talk in full. A lot of people like to write it out as if it were a piece of writing and then learn it. If you have a script with you, you might not be able to stop yourself from reading to the audience, and then you lose contact with them. You don't want to be reading, you want to be looking, in your case, into the camera. But and don't worry about ums and ers. That's perfectly natural, and you don't lose any marks for hesitations. You don't lose any marks for accent either. Okay. The thing to do instead of having a script is just to have notes, just to have a few notes that give you the order in which you're going to say things, or maybe a couple of words that you need to remember. And these brief notes could be on cards, like index cards. Use a separate card for each section, so you go through them as you're speaking. The title of each section and a few keywords on to remind you. That's all you need. As you reach the end of one section, you just move that card to the bottom of the pack. And you can do all that whilst you're looking at who you're speaking to. Now, this isn't really going to count for you because you're working online, and therefore you're just looking at the camera. So just try and keep eye contact with the camera so that you look as if you're looking at the examiner. You're not only being assessed on the quality of your talk, but also on the way that you answer the questions at the end. So the questions and your answers to them are just as important as the 4 minutes that you're talking for. And in fact, sometimes if your talk is maybe not as complex as it should be and doesn't reach the highs, then actually a question will be given to you that will force you maybe to think a little bit more deeply and perhaps give a bit more detail. This is the assessment criteria for a pass grade. So all you have to do is tick these boxes. Is it audible? Can we hear it? Simple as that. If you can't hear the speech, it's not good, is it? You must use spoken standard English, no slang. And you must express straightforward ideas or information and feelings. So just ideas, some information, some personal feelings about the subject. You should make an attempt to organize and structure your presentation. And you need to attempt to meet the needs of the audience. The needs of the audience in this case are simply that we follow your presentation and that we understand what you're trying to tell us and we understand your point of view. And then at the end, you're going to listen to the questions and provide appropriate responses in a straightforward manner. Now, that's all you need to do to get a pass. And what we, will be doing, myself and one of the other GCSE tutors will mark them. Then the exam board will mark them because they will all be videoed, and they will go to the exam board. But we tick these boxes, and if we can tick all of those, we move on to merit. And they're very similar criteria, you can see. So the first two are the same again. But instead of straightforward ideas, it says challenging ideas or challenging information, and using a range of vocabulary. So maybe moving it, stepping up the complexity of your talk. You have to have organization and structure. It has to be clear and appropriate. And you have to achieve the purpose of your presentation. You want to put forward a particular argument or an idea, and you do so in a way that's going to maybe win over people who are listening to you. And then your answers to the questions will be formal and detailed, and that's for merit. And finally, distinction, which is the highest level we have. Again, it's audible, uses spoken standard English, but the ideas expressed this time, it says sophisticated. So that's quite complex, a little bit more mature, and you should also use a sophisticated repertoire of vocabulary. So trying to use quite challenging language, higher level vocabulary and words. You should organize and structure your presentation using an effective range of strategies to engage the audience. So not just a beginning, a middle, and an end. You ought to think about what sort of language features you're using. Maybe you use section headings. Maybe you use rhetorical questions. Maybe you use humor. Maybe you actually interact with the audience and ask them questions, and just find different ways to put across your arguments. And finally, the questions this time, you're responding perceptively and give lots of information and detail. You elaborate and explain the answers that you give. I will send you a copy of this assessment criteria so you can have a look at it yourself. So standard English, for the purposes of the spoken language assessment, standard English means it's intelligible, that is, it can be understood, and you generally use language appropriate to a formal setting. So the presentation is a formal presentation. You are talking to the group or talking to the tutor, and that is being done in a formal way. It's not something that you should just be very relaxed about. You should try and present it in a formal manner. What I'm suggesting now is that we have a look at an example, just so you know the sort of thing that we're looking for. So we're going to watch a young lady called Laura, and she's going to be giving her formal presentation on the dangers of horses who go in for steeplechases, steeplechasing. That's where they go over jumps. It's like a horse race where they have to jump over jumps. And she feels very strongly about it. So we're going to have a look at that. Can you see a YouTube, Laura, standing there?
Yes.
Excellent. So I am going to share, include sound. Okay. And here we go.
The truth behind horse racing's glamorous facade.
Most people regard horse racing as a harmless sport, whereby the animals are a willing participant who thoroughly enjoy the thrill of racing. The truth is, behind the scenes lies a story of immense suffering. Beneath its glamorous facade, horse racing is a ruthless industry motivated by financial gain and prestige. Being a keen rider myself, after watching this year's Grand National, although there were no deaths during the main race, we do not see what goes on behind closed doors. This made me question not only the safety of the race, but also the welfare of the animals. John Smith's Grand National is renowned for its hazardous history, 117 years of an overcrowded field of 40 horses being forced to confront 30 challenging and treacherous jumps over a 4.5-mile course. The safety improvements have claims to be made from year upon year, from the material used for the fencing, numerous lineup changes made to reduce stress of the horses, and post-race care improvements. But just how much safer is the greatest steeplechase in the world? After the sudden death of A.P. McCoy's Irish bred, Synchronized, in 2012, the industry was put under a lot of pressure to answer years' worth of hidden secrets and questions. McCoy said, "Synchronized is a horse that I won't ever forget. It is one of those terrible things that you wish will never happen." An RSPCA report on the death also stated, "The risks to horses are not appropriate and horses are continuing to die at fences such as Beecher's Brook despite safety improvements." Although we cannot wipe out the unexpected deaths, we must act to cut down on this kind of avoidable risk. Approximately 18,000 foals are born into the British and Irish racing industry each year, yet only around 40% go on to become racers. Those that do not make the grade may be slaughtered for meat or repeatedly changed hands in a downward spiral of neglect. Those that do go on to race, 400 will be raced to death each year. The survivors are also denied their future. The top breeding stallions are overworked and kept isolated from many horses for many years. The breeding females are subjected to an endless cycle of pregnancy, often including the use of drugs and other artificial interventions. Defenders of the race use a variety of myths in their attempts to save the closure of the race. Horses enjoy the challenge. They are not equal to the challenge. The modern industry concentrates on breeding lighter-boned, speedier animals for flat racing. The less successful, or those good at clearing fences, are consigned to jump racing. Because they are fine-tuned for speed rather than strength, they risk fatal injury when they fall. There have been many campaigns to gain back control over the safety standards and welfare of the horses. Animal Aid is the largest animal rights group in the UK. A major campaign they have been involved with is for the whip to be banned from British racing. Horses are the only animals to be beaten in public for entertainment. Many race-related injuries, such as bleeding lungs, are caused from the overuse of the whip. This campaign has been more successful than others because this is the type of cruelty that we see. The hidden cruelty has almost been pushed aside. Horse racing is an extreme sport, but because of the glamour associated with it and the obscene amount of money put into the industry, the safety has almost been glazed over. The cruelty and secrets of the race and sport in general have been concealed because of the popularity and the money brought in from gambling. Formula One is also considered an extreme sport. Like horse racing, it is a race, but because this is a human sport, not an animal sport, the safety is superior over the glamour. It is a fact that we care more about us humans than animals. Years' worth of training means that drivers and teams are prepared if something goes wrong. This minimises the risk and prevents unexpected accidents. But where is the acceptable risk in horse racing? The Grand National should be presented as a thrilling spectacle that British racing can be proud of, not a welfare problem to be ashamed of. Horse racing needs to continue to be monitored and regulated, but risk can never be completely removed. This is why I think the original extreme sport has become too extreme.
Now, we've got any questions? Anna?
What sort of regulations are you thinking of?
I think that the fences could be lowered, but I don't think that would remove the sort of wow factor of the racing in general. I think it would just put our minds at ease from the point of where I'm standing, from the safety aspects of it, I think if we took the fences down slightly, I don't think the distance needs to be changed dramatically. I just think the fences should be lowered. I think that could be a main one.
And Charlotte?
Isn't it right that we put humans over animals?
I think to an extent, yes, but I think there needs to be a cut-off point where we see them as the same, because in the end of the day, we have evolved from animals, so there is an aspect of similarity between us and animals. So depending on the circumstances and the sport in general, needs to be considered differently.
Okay. These moral questions are never easy, are they? So you really want to look after us. The trouble is, if horse racing becomes a bit pale and insipid because it's not got the thrill of the extreme sport, as you call it, if it becomes quite ordinary, then people won't particularly want to watch it, in which case the logical assumption is actually that the horses will be killed because there'll be no need for them. They'll have no purpose. So aren't your plans actually ultimately going to make horses suffer more, bizarrely?
Well, I think that even if steeplechase dies down, I think the aspects of flat racing and just jump racing in general with the flimsy fences will still be there. And you've got to remember that there's different types of horse riding. You've got all the eventing side of things and the dressage and that sort of thing, where the risk isn't as high as a steeplechase.
So you're not against equine sports?
Oh, no, but being a rider myself, I'm far from that. I think it's just the danger that we put the horses in with the steeplechase has become too extreme.
Okay, thank you.
So, what did you think? What did you think of Laura? Anybody? How do you think she did?
Reasonably well. She had a few times where she was speaking off of a bit of paper, but mainly that was for getting information of actual figures and quotes.
Yep. And that's perfectly permissible. If she's got her notes, so she looks down at her notes, but when it's an actual quote and she wants to get somebody's words right, that's fine to read that, just as long as you're not reading the whole speech out. Yeah. So was she clear? I mean, if we have a...
She was quite clear. Yeah, I think she was quite clear.
So if we had a look back at the criteria, remember the criteria? So you've got pass, which expresses straightforward ideas and information and feelings, makes an attempt to organize and structure. Do you think that's where she is, or is she higher than that? Anybody?
I think she's higher than that.
Higher than that? Yeah. Okay, well, let's try merit. Is she expresses challenging ideas and information, feelings using a range of vocabulary, organizes and structures a presentation? Is this where you think she is, everybody? What
Definitely had different ideas for it.
I think I think she must have done even more than Merit, because she answered the questions very well when she was asked.
So you think she might be distinction?
Her language and vocabulary, the way she used them, the data. She tried to, she knows her point, I guess.
So a good use of language, good use of vocabulary. So maybe she comes into this area, distinction.
Distinction, I think. Yeah, she's in between that, but I cannot just say this.
Yeah.
But she's between
so for distinction, you've got sophisticated ideas, sophisticated vocabulary, and organizing and structuring in a very effective strategy to engage the audience. So maybe some of you think it's distinction, some merit. Let's have a look and see what the examiners thought. Because this video is one of a number of videos that are sent to us, because we have to do the initial assessment of your talk, and then it goes to the examiners and they check our marking. But it's teachers in the centres who actually do it. So they send us these videos which they've already marked, you see. So let's see what they say. That's not it. Oh. Okay. I lost it there for a minute, sorry. And now we're back. So this is what the examiners said about Laura. Hopefully you can all see this piece of writing that says set B, B1 Laura. So Laura has a very clear grasp of her topic and puts forward a challenging set of ideas and solutions. She highlights essential concepts through reference to detailed interpretation of data. She has a sophisticated repertoire of vocabulary, creates a very tightly structured and cohesive argument and analysis. She uses a range of rhetorical strategies to engage with her audience. She has confident interactive strategies, listens closely to the audience questions before interrogating perceptively the implications of what she is being asked. I don't know if you agree with that, with the way that she answered the questions, but they are saying that her responses to the challenging questions asked by the teacher are especially impressive. She follows an argument with some sophistication and closely argues throughout. She has a very assured and flexible use of standard English. So you were right if you said distinction. She hits all the descriptors for distinction. That's Laura. So the one we've just watched is a distinction. So that would be the best, the highest quality that they are looking for. Obviously, if you were better than that, you can only still get a distinction. There's no higher grade here. When they use words like sophisticated and challenging in their mark schemes, you've got to remember they're talking about sophisticated and challenging for a 16-year-old. And we have to remember that the GCSE is mainly taken by kids in year 11. So that's where they're pitching it. Their idea of sophisticated is for a 16-year-old's level of sophistication. So adults generally have a slight advantage here because you've got more life experiences, being older and having had more experience in the world. So you start off with a little bit of an advantage there. Where you have a disadvantage, of course, is that you don't have the same length of time in school that they do. You get 1 2.5 hour class a week, whereas they get several classes a week, and they've got 2 years to work up to the exams, and we're trying to do it in a few weeks. But having said that, you know, that's fine. We're going to look at another example now to compare and see what you think, whether this one is better or not as good. And if you think it's not as good, do you think it is actually a lower credential? Is it a merit? Is it a pass? Or is it a distinction just the same? So let's have a look at this next one. This is a gentleman called Zane that you're going to see. Oh no, I didn't do it. Sorry. I put on the computer sound. So we're going to see Zane. Hopefully everybody can see him. You can see the box anyway. And here's Zane.
Zane presents to his classmates on the topic of racism.
No, we're not going to see Zane, sorry.
Hello, my name is Zane and today I will be discussing racism. Let me...
It's the wrong one. Yeah, I'm getting my recordings confused here. Right, sorry about that. We're not seeing Zane, we're seeing Jabriel. Ready? Here we go.
My name is Jabril, and the subject of my presentation today is free will, and it's going when it's split up into three parts. Basically, it's firstly talk about what is free will, and then how the arguments for do we have our own free will, and if we don't. So to get started, free will is acting upon something without the constraint of faith or necessity. In other words, it's where you do. You have full control without any external, like anything happening from the outside. You have full control of what you do, and there's two parts to it. I mean, actually, if you start off with any choice a person makes is a culmination of interaction of a multitude of number of hidden factors. This can be something like genetic inheritance, or it could be based on life experiences and other external factors. So it's not, and because it's done unconsciously, we seem to not take notice, and then what we tend to do is we tend to take ownership of what we've done, as if we come to a conclusion as if it's something that we've done independently, and most of the time this is not the case. Free will is sometimes it's considered almost an illusion because logically it's not something that exists, and an example of that would be. If you had given me the ingredients to make a cake, I'd make you a cake and then I'd take ownership of it. I'd tell you I made this cake for you, but you have to think that these are these are like the external influences that have been put there, And it's the same thing with if you gave me some bread or lettuce, I'd make you a sandwich, and even if you had both of them together, it seemed as if I had the choice to choose which one I'd want to do. But then again, you've put them there for me. You've given me two options, so the probability of me choosing one or the other is it's inevitable. So it seems as if we can take control of what we do and that might not be the case. But then again, another thing is like some scientists believe that the brain, like our brain, is just a bunch of nerves that fire in direct relation to chemical and electrical events, and that the fact that there's no space for free will, and some so there's different sides of the thing, and there's a religious aspect of this as well, where some of us believe that what we do is preordained, is written for us, it's almost an act of God, so it's not it's not something that it could come up in question. It would be a good debate, but there's always two sides to an argument, and I think it's just something that people should really think about sometimes, because it's it's kind of cliche how when you use the term free will, we use it so openly as if it's something that we do have full control of, and I think that's about it. Yeah.
So do you think that we're controlled by what we do and what we think and our decisions of that, what we make?
I don't think it's to the extent where we are controlled, as if we're a puppet and we have somebody who's controlling us. But as you live your life, there are certain things that happen that lead you to take certain actions. And at this point, it's not something. I'm not trying to say like if you had a traumatic event in your life, it would change every single action you ever made. But you have to look at this slightly different. I mean, it seems as if that's what I'm implying, but it's like if it's you make different decisions, but it's not based on one event that's happened in your life. So it doesn't, and does it mean that you're like a puppet. Somebody's controlling you throughout your life, that's telling you what to do. You do have some sense of direction yourself. So it's not it's not as so to speak as if you're being controlled. Yeah.
What made you want to talk about free will, by the way?
I don't know. I just think it's something that it's something I find quite interesting, and a lot of people don't, they use the expression so openly, saying, "Oh, you have your own free will," without having the knowledge of looking into how, is this actually possible, and how, how did we come about to use the term free will. So I just thought it was something, something interesting that I could share with somebody.
And one thing you touched on, but I'd like a bit more detail about, is you talked about the opposite of free will, i.e. things being preordained. What do you think of sort of the preordained argument? Do you think that it's a strong argument?
I mean...
And why?
It's based on... it's a valid argument. How strong it is, personally, I'm not too sure, because it's based on the person who's providing this argument. It could be based more on belief, because it is more of a belief. If you believe that what you're doing is it's already been set out for you, like it will happen. So, I mean, I think it's based on the person who's presenting the argument. That's what, the key strength for you. That's how you know whether it's a weak argument or a strong one. That's what I think as well.
Hello, my name is Charlotte, and I'm going to be talking about why large...
So, what did you think of Gabriel, and compare him to the young lady we saw before? Do you think the examiners would have marked him the same, or just below, or a lot below? What do you think?
I feel like the first one was a lot better than the second.
Right.
Because with this one, I don't think he felt as confident with what he was talking about.
Yeah.
And it was like, respectfully, it was quite tiring listening to it when he was like stuttering a lot, and it's just it was a lot more to have to concentrate and listen to than the other one.
Mm-hmm. So you don't think it was as well presented?
No, I feel like the first one was more passionate. Not passionate, but she felt more strongly about it. You could hear it from how she was talking about it compared to how he was presenting his.
Okay, interesting. Anybody else?
I think the way he replied to the questions at the end wasn't very good. However, the actual presentation was okay overall.
Right. So in comparison, where would you place him?
Merit.
Okay, merit.
Pass.
Pass. Somebody's gone for pass. Okay. Right. So
it's a bit of both. I feel like I see some parts for merit, but I also see some parts for pass. So it's a bit of both.
What did you think about his subject matter? It was a very complex and sophisticated subject, wasn't it?
Yes, but I feel like he could have presented, like how he was presenting it, be a bit more. I don't feel like the subject itself was bad at all. I think it was quite good, but I feel like how he presented it could have been better.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's have a look at what the examiner said. So we got the range there of all the way from pass to distinction, I think. So now they say that he's chosen a complex topic and uses a sophisticated repertoire and range of vocabulary. Now, because he's chosen a complex topic, it almost forces him to use a sophisticated repertoire of vocabulary. So he's gone for philosophy rather than a hobby like horse racing. He speaks with few notes and demonstrates extensive knowledge. Now, the fact that he hasn't got many notes probably does mean that he ums and ahs a bit more and seems to lose his way a bit. But he does demonstrate extensive knowledge. The presentation has clear organization. Okay. His relaxed but enthusiastic approach to the topic and its importance clearly engages the audience. He listens carefully to questions, responding confidently and appropriately. The teacher asks a challenging question which allows Jibril to elaborate further on his ideas. His spoken standard English is assured and flexible. It should be noted that he uses a large number of fillers. Fillers are the ums and ers and you know and things like that. Attitudes to such use vary from individual to individual, but it needs to be made clear here that fillers are common in speech and that use of them is not an issue within the framing of these criteria. So the examiners do not judge you on your ums and ahs and your hesitations. That's perfectly natural, and they don't look at those. So although it makes it feel like it's not as slick, not as professional, it's not counted. Okay, so he's been given a distinction. And they say that the reasons he got a distinction are this: he speaks on a complex topic which required a sophisticated range of ideas. He's helped by the teacher's question, which enables him to elaborate his ideas. They say, so who asked the questions and the level of challenge of the questions needs to be considered by us. So that's why I will be there to make sure that if somebody's talk was maybe a little light on complexity, I will ask a question that might help you to tease out a different level, you know, actually go a bit deeper. So you can use the questions to actually go in greater detail into your particular topic. But definitely choosing a complex topic helped him a lot here. Because I think most of you have probably shared with me that it clearly wasn't as polished and nicely presented, and it did feel a bit more sort of haphazard and laid back. But they still gave him a distinction, and what's perhaps helped him here is the fact that the topic itself was more complex. And therefore, what he lost on some of the presentation side, he's gained on the subject level and the fact that it was a complex subject that he was talking about. Take that into consideration when you're choosing your topic. I said choose something you're enthusiastic about, but do choose something that you can at least express some ideas in or have some sort of wider understanding of. The example that I use is that a few years ago we had a lady who did a lovely talk on cupcakes, and yes, cupcakes is a nice subject, and we were doing it in a classroom, so she brought cupcakes in and gave one to everybody in the class, and it's lovely. She talked about icing and decoration and so on, but we couldn't even pass her because it's just not a subject that she was able to be interesting and complex on. It was too simple. So do think about that if you're going to talk about, say, a holiday or your favorite place or something. You can give very, very complex talks on a place, if it's got history or politics or something about it. But you can also be very bland and very simplistic if talking about certain subjects. So choose something you can be a little bit more in depth about. Okay. Has anybody got any questions right now about the presentation? No, good. So remember, it's only a four minutes or so.
Question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, what if you were not able to answer a question?
If you were given a question, well, why not say, sorry, I don't understand that question?
Right.
Well, what do you mean? You know,
If you
because
just can't, I mean, if you just don't have an answer to the question, I mean, where do you stand? I mean, where do you take it from there, kind of thing?
Just pass it, and maybe you'll get another question that you do understand.
Right.
I'm going to be there to make sure that you get a good choice, a good chance at questions. Okay.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Any more questions? If you think of any, just email me or bring them next week, because I'm going to ask you just go away, think about what topics you want to talk about, and come back with a topic for next week, so I can go around the class and ask you, what are you going to be talking about? I won't expect you to do the talk there and then. I will just want to know that you've got something, that you've chosen something. Okay.
Actually, one question would be, what would be a good topic?
Well, I think a good topic for me wouldn't be the same as a good topic for you. You've got to choose something I think you know about and are enthusiastic about. I gave you the one about the lady who talked about sexism in sport. It was something she was passionate about. But another lady on the same day talked about the A380 Airbus. She just loves this aeroplane. You know, she's been on it several times just to visit, not to fly. She's got photographs and charts about it. She knows all the specs, and she just wanted to talk to us about and introduce us to this luxury aeroplane. Somebody else talked about a sport that they enjoyed. It was I can't remember what the sport's called now, but it was a sport they play in India and Pakistan. He told us about the rules. He told us about the strategies. You know, and that was very personal to him. So I think it can be something quite personal. It can be something you just like to talk about. You know, and if you were with a friend, you could talk about it for 10 minutes on a row, you know, or more. And then you have to impose a bit of order on it, a bit of structure. But just to choose it as a subject, I think go with what you want, go with what you like. Yeah. Not cupcakes, maybe, but although I think you can be sophisticated about cupcakes, it's just she wasn't. And maybe there are some subjects which are easy to be complex about, like philosophy, and others where it would be easy to sort of just become a bit simplistic, like cupcakes. But actually, I think you can go the either way with all of subjects. It's how you want to express thoughts into them. Okay. Right, so we're going to move on, and what we're going to start looking at now is the language analysis, which will be the main topic of the next couple of weeks. Hold on.